Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Workshop 13, Clearing and Timing. So, with the new changes that has happened in the last patch, I really think that most people can get 3K. And to do that, I'm here to help you with showing you some videos about what we ended up doing to do this clearing. And this specifically is our Workshop one. As always, I appreciate you. Thank you, and enjoy the video. Okay, and as you know, we're going to get right into it. We're going to go right into this pull. Now, as you can see, we're going to go right into Mechagon, and we're going to end up pulling the first 3 packs together. We're going to make sure that we're consistently doing interrupts and also CCing as many of those detonates as possible. Now, it is a 13, which means if any of those detonates go off, more than likely, we are dead. So we end up focusing the detonates first. We end up killing them and destroying them and then pulling the other pack. We end up having a couple of pugs in here, Pug Healer and also DPS and also the Windwalker Monk. So we kind of had to take that into account a little bit. Myself and Risen, as you've seen before in other keys, we kind of just went in and we were trucking through them. Now, as you can see, we're going to go through. We're going to end up AoEing down these first packs very easily, very quickly, and we're going to get that down. So this 13 Mechagon was, going towards a 3K as I was leveling. And as always, I appreciate you all for checking us out. Now, let's go ahead and we're going to end up doing these pulls and we're going to see how that ends up coming through. Now, we're going to end up getting the pull. We're going to end up trying to DPS and consistently DPS the Pummeler. I'm going to end up trying to not disengage into bombs, which I've been known to do more than once. I'm going to end up trying to keep the other bombs together because most of the time they are going to, focus the ranged targets more than the melee targets. So we're going to end up continually do that. Now, we're going to try to make sure I don't get blown into the bombs like you just saw there. Thankfully, I was able to live because I used it defensive. And we're going to end up continuing to DPS down the ads. Now, the flipper is usually the more problematic one because it is moving you out of position. The bombs that are being placed on you are also going to cause problems because of the flipper. So we're going to end up trying to continue doing aim shots, and we're going to end up continuing to focus on the one target. When the armor goes onto the boss, onto the pummeler, we end up putting him underneath the hammer. We end up killing the hammer. And we're going to end up continuously doing a circle around the room. The circle around the room is going to be ending up to go towards the hammers so that we can continuously break them every single time the plates come up. And that does happen more often than we want to. As you saw there, I actually got gripped down as when it happened. And we broke another, broke the boss again, the pummeler. When the pummeler does get hit with the hammer, it does have increased damage to it for just a couple of seconds. So if you can time your big hits correctly, it's going to do massive amounts of damage. So we're going to continue to try to AoE down as much as we can, even though it's very hard for me as a Marksman Hunter to do so. So we're going to end up taking one down and then the other very, very close. You want to make sure you pull them together. Killing them together so that they end up not having the big pulsation. So we're going to run down this hallway. I always are going to continue to MD as much as I possibly can. As you can see, the metal chunks or clunks, whatever you want to call them, those are your big boy problems because they're going to end up doing massive damage to the group. So we're going to end up doing that. I'm sorry, not the massive clunks. It is the MP unit or is it workshop unit? I'm trying to remember. But those are the ones, these guys right here, the waste protection units, I think that's what they're called. Those guys are the ones that are going to be your biggest issue because they're going to do those AoE pulses. If you pull too many of them, it just means you're going to not be able to live through it. You cannot LOS around the pipes like you used to. And we try to make sure that we pull enough down so that we can AoE them down with the waste protection mobs. Now, those guys are the ones you really need to worry about for this. Not the heal absorb debuffs, not the damage being put out by the other guys. It is just those waste protection units. So we're going to end up continuing to kill those. We're going to pull in and we're going to go right into the dogs here. The dogs themselves, they don't do that much damage. They do a jump and they will hurt you and put a dot on you, but they're very easily, dealable. If you do have Ring of Peace like it was there, we ended up using the Ring of Peace, I think a little too early. We could have used it here, putting it down and using it as a defensive for the rest of the team. So we're going to end up continuing to AoE down these groups and trying to make sure the dispels and the defensives are used when we do have a bite on us. We weren't even done with that when we ended up pulling Cujo. The airdrops now, you cannot pretty much LOS DPS. You have to fully get behind the box, as you can see. So we make sure we're out of line of sight of that venting. And we try to make sure that we're just going to continually DPSing the boss. The airdrops will drop on one person randomly. You want to make sure you're away from the box. You can't feign death them if you or shadow meld them or anything like that. So we do that, get behind the venting flames again, try to make sure we don't die. The Blazing Chomp, when it is placed onto the tank and then it is dispelled, what ends up happening is there is a big AoE pulse. So you want to be very careful on that. This dungeon, for me personally, is probably one of the worst dungeons to have the time to do anything with. My DPS probably was the lowest it's been in a very long time when we were in this dungeon. I was kind of sad about it, but it has happened. But we were able to continually DPS down the boss, who really isn't that too bad to deal with. So we just got to make sure that we have the ability to hide on these vents. That's what ends up making this boss take longer to kill. And that's why a lot of people pull mobs onto this boss while they're DPSing it. That way they can save time between having to deal with those jumps and they can continue to DPS. And they're just cleaving off the other boss. Here's another venting flame at 5%. And he's going to get killed very, very quickly. And we're going to go up. Now, for this, you can miss most of the conveyor belts if you're a demon hunter or warlock or anything like that. Even hunters have the ability to disengage onto it. I didn't want to chance it because we were trying to time this key and we wanted to really focus. Our damage overall, I thought was pretty high because I was the only one that was kind of on the lower side. But, that's just me talking out loud. I don't know how everybody got onto the top of this as fast as they did. We're going to ending up continuing to DPS the group. We're going to try to interrupt as much as we can. Make sure we're not going through the anti-personal squirrel shields. So the walkway that is behind us right now is the walkway towards the next boss in the next area. A lot of the times people will end up like shadow melding or blipping through the wall or something like that because you can get through it if you have certain abilities. But that's more of a higher end MDI strat, but it's really not used on these low keys, so I wouldn't think to do it unless you knew the group itself. Now we're going to continue to DPS the couple of mobs here to try to get them down. The demon hunter in our group actually DCs right now, and that was kind of something that was tiring and annoying to me because I really wanted to get this key down and timed. So I was really nervous that he wasn't going to come back. So we're just going to keep pushing through the dungeon itself because we do have a decent amount of damage and we can do it. So if we end up having problems or deaths or something like that, so be it. So we just end up continuing to deal with the rest of this as possible. So we're just continuing to dodge and move. The capacitor discharge was some problems. Watching the frontals. All these are very basic movements that you really have to not really worry about. It's just the pulse from the capacitor discharge that you need to be worried about and you need to be ready to move for. So we're going to end up moving here, moving there, getting through there, dealing with sonic pulse. And continuing forward. Now, as you see, my DPS is kind of low because it's single target, but if it's an AoE group, it's not too bad. So here we're ending up going to the next part where we end up having to pretty much go through the gauntlet of alarm bots, trying to make sure that we can kind of get as much of these alarm bots down, or I should say get past them. So I end up pretty much bursting with speed to get through. There are multiple ways to get through this without a problem. I have my one set way, and I always do it that way because I don't want to risk losing it. I don't also like doing what that guy just did and getting past the other bots because it might end up, causing some problems. So here we're going to wait until the healer gets here, and then we're going to end up pulling this group. Now, it's just going to take a second to make sure you end up subscribing or you end up following us or you end up joining us if you're on Twitch, YouTube, or anything like that. We greatly appreciate the love and support. The Demon Hunter is back right now, so we're going to end up continuing to DPS this group as much as we can with hopes that we down this group, he gets here, and then we can end up pulling the boss. It's 15 minutes, which really, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that much time. Because you want to remember that the last boss is going to take about 6 minutes. And then you're going to have this boss here, which is going to take about 5. Which means you're going to have about 4 minutes to play with. And you still have to deal with the trash. So we end up killing that mob. Everyone's here. We just go right in to DPSing the boss. The plant pretty much almost kills me right off the rip when it comes out, which is something I was not ready for. But now I know for the future, we're going to end up DPSing down here. We're trying to stay close to the center because the center is like a bounce off point. So it's easier to deal with than if you're in the middle and you got to consistently move. If you're on the far side, it's hard because they kind of almost take you and put you in a pocket and you can't really do anything with it. So instead of dealing with that, you should stay close to the center. As you saw there, I stupidly just walked into the middle of that and died. We ended up losing the Demon Hunter there also, who we also res there, battle res. And we're going to continue to DPS down this ad. And it's just chipping away our timer. So like I said, I was very scared about this as a whole. As you can see on the timer underneath the Demon Hunter, we have about 10 seconds left till we can kill this boss. Now it's up to 30, so the time changed a little bit because of our DPS rates. We can only hope. So, boss down. Make sure you interrupt the flowers when it comes down so it doesn't do massive amounts of damage. What you want to end up doing here is you want to end up targeting the second spider tank. Once you kill the second spider tank, it ends up pulling the traveling mob from one side of the map to the other. So you want to make sure you're continuing to do that. And here we're going to get those spider tanks down and we're going to go into the next grouping. We're going to fly to the next area. Not really much we can say or do here. And we're going to start going after these groups. Now, we're going to pull as much of this hallway together as it is. Now, something you want to know about this dungeon, you have these squirrels, which are going to do a lot of damage, but you also have these shield generators. These shield generators absorb a lot of damage, and you can use that. So it is recommended that you stand in them at all times and be careful of what happens with the squirrel explosions. So right now, as you can see, there's a generator there, and I just sat in that squirrel explosion and didn't take any damage because I have 2 generators on top of me. Nobody else is standing in them, and I don't really know why. So we end up making sure we're just continuing to AoE and burning down these ads while I'm standing in those generators so that there's less damage that needs to be healed. And we end up getting that down. Now, to get around this mob, we end up using Mind Soothe, and then we end up going towards the edge. I camo because I'm always worried about butt pull and stuff, so this way I know I can't. And now we're going to pull those last 3 mobs there. And we're going to AoE them down. As you can see, I'm continuing to stand in the shield generator, making sure that we're continuing to interrupt as much as we possibly can from the mobs themselves. And we know we're not going to have percentage at the end of this, so we're just going to grab it from that group that we just passed. But right now, we know that we're going to be super close, and we'll probably have to kill like 1 mob. So we're at 99.73. So we go right into the last boss, and we just start going for it. Now, the trick for dealing with the recalibrations are staying in one spot and consistently moving to another spot, and then moving closer to the other orb if you end up doing that, or you can get kind of farther away from it. But I always stand away from the group because I don't want that to be pulled through it. So that way I know kind of where the vicinity of this ball is going to come from, and they do too, because it's not a random time of like putting it somewhere. So right now we're going to end up dealing with the cutter beam. You want to make sure you get away from that. You only take damage if you end up getting in the way of that. The frontal beam, you want only 1 person to take that. Here we're DPSing this guy down, and he is almost dead. Now, as always, there's a phase 2 when it comes to anything gnome oriented. So that's something to know. I use defensive for frontal if I have the ability to. And here we get stunned, and we're going to go right into big boy Mechagon here, the Omega Buster. So I try to stay in one spot here throughout the whole time, trying to make sure that I don't get anything around me that I'm going to get pulled on top of me. I don't move when I get the Mega Zap, because if you start moving, you're going to kill somebody. So I try to stay in the same close vicinity. The only time I get closer to the rest of the group is when I have to deal with the pull-in. So we gotta be careful. Here's another Mega Zap. They don't do that much damage, but also the healer is doing a fantastic job keeping us up. Another Recalibrate. And it's just a very repeatable boss fight. So once you kind of understand where to stand and where not to stand, you're going to be okay. We just ended up losing the Demon Hunter. Brought him back up. We're 37%, 36, 35, 34, 22. So we got about 20 seconds left, and then we have 3 minutes left on the clock. So we figure we're going to be going into this last boss with about 3 minutes left on the top. Well, I shouldn't even say boss. I would say the ads, because now we got the stupid part 3. I get close enough to the door because what I'm going to do is I'm going to MD the ads. But Risen just like beelines it because he's about just like me. He wants to get this done. So we pop everything we got. We just go for it. We try to AoE down as much as we can. We just need to kill 1 mob. And we want to make sure there's no deaths, no nothing, but we just need 1 mob death. So we're just going to do it. And, we get it. I hope you too enjoyed our Workshop 13 clearing. Now, as always, I greatly appreciate you all. Please make sure you come check us out on Twitch and on YouTube every single Monday through Friday. You can join, subscribe, follow, whichever you'd like to do to support the channel. As always, I greatly appreciate it. Check out all the videos we have here. Thank you and enjoy.